Good morning, good evening, or good afternoon, whatever time you're joining us. This is Jim Watts with the Tulsa World, here with my colleague, the lovely and talented Jimmy Trammell, who doesn't talk. There he goes. Okay, he does hear.
I'm here, yeah.
All right.
It's not a very good podcast if only one of us talks, I guess.
Yeah, they do like the conversation. Unfortunately, the even more lovely and talented Grace Wood is unavoidably detained and it's not going to be able to join us today. So you'll have to put up with the two of us. And at this point in time, you probably are glad that you are listening to this as a podcast because anyway, or you can watch the video online at tulsaworld.com or well, probably that's about the only place you can find it. But anyway,
you can hear the podcast or anywhere you hear lots of other podcasts, like every other forum to hear a podcast. You can find Tulsa World Scene podcast.
Okay, and Spotify and Apple Podcasts and all those things. Where from whatever vine of the internet you pluck your pods, will be there. So we're here to talk a little bit about what's coming up in the scene section for the next week or so. We have things like a review of The Sound of Music put on by Theater Tulsa that will be running through the end of January. It's worth checking out. We'll just put it that way. What else have you got for us for Friday?
Best-selling author and professional wrestler, retired professional wrestler, Mick Foley is coming to Tulsa and Broken Arrow for a couple of store appearances. One store appearance, one Looney Bin appearance next week. So we'll talk about that Friday. And you mentioned Sound of Music. Did you know I have one complaint with the new Spider-Man? Have you seen the new Spider-Man movie?
I must confess I have not.
Okay. They brought all these Spider-Men back from the previous movies. And my complaint was, I wish they could have included Nicholas Hammond, who was in the Sound of Music movie and also played Spider-Man in a TV series that did not last very long. But I was just rooting for Nicholas Hammond to also be among those other Spider-Man characters in the movie, but not really the Spider-Man from Electric Company, because it was just like word balloons above his head in the TV show Electric Company.
Well, I think I vaguely remember that that TV series. It was rudimentary, I guess, might be the best way to.
Didn't have the special effects to pull off the stuff you needed to do.
Yeah.
In the movies. Came out about the same time as the Hulk and Bill Bixby. That lasted. Spider-Man did not. And so on and so forth.
Okay. All right. Well, our restaurant review that's currently available to peruse this week is for a place called Sandos Rockin' Deli and Provisions. It's downtown Tulsa, corner of 5th and Boston. And it is a vegan deli primarily. They do carry meat products as well for those who are into that sort of thing. But if you want to have, deli style sandwiches and not have meat in them, they offer them up. The first time I went there, I ordered what the lady behind the counter described as the normal version of one sandwich. And what I got was the vegan version. I don't know if it was an honest mistake. Most likely it was, or if she was thinking he really needs to try this just by taking a look at me. But it actually was. I did not miss the meat as long as I ate the sandwich altogether. If you tear off a slice of what they were calling ham and ate it by itself, no. But in the whole context of the sandwich with all the vegetables and the sauces and the bread and everything, it was actually very, very good. So, and apparently they are getting people from all over the region who drive specifically to this little small establishment in downtown Tulsa to get their vegan fix and their deli fix all in one. I might hazard a guess, but I'm thinking, Jimmy, you're not following the vegan lifestyle.
Sometimes nachos, with cheese. Is that vegan or? Hey, this may be fascinating to people who think that reviewing restaurants would be a great deal. You can't just go in and try one thing.
Oh,
What like standard? I'm going to try this many things. What's your number of how many things you're going to try when you check out a restaurant?
It truly depends. If I go by myself, I go at least twice, and I try to get things that could span as much of the menu as possible. I mean, in some places it's not possible simply because there's just so much stuff. But I'll try to get two very different entrees in the course of those visits. I'll try to get different sides each time. I look for things that are maybe a little unexpected, especially when it comes to side dishes. For example, I'm going to be reviewing a place in Bixby soon called Chipper's Southern Fusion and Seafood, I believe. And one of the sides they offered is one of the sides is collard greens with smoked turkey, which were actually very, very good. So I look for things like that. And if it's sometimes if I can only go once, I'll have a meal and then order things to take home. Okay. So I try as much as possible to avoid judging a place on a single visit. Partly because with all of the COVID problems and supplies problems, people that run restaurants are at the mercy of a whole lot of forces beyond their control. And so you can't expect in times like this, they have everything on the menu. Even Whataburger, I noticed, has put out a public notice that they're moving to a limited menu because of supply side problems. So, but you try to get as broad a perspective as possible.
Maybe like a teacher that you throw out the worst grade and the best grade, and because you don't want to judge any place by maybe you judge by their best place. You don't want to, or by their best item. You don't want to judge it by their worst item for sure.
No, it all goes into the mental blender and balances out. So that might be, I've had people complain on various social medias that I quote give 3 stars to everything, and that's kind of a median good grade, and because there's some things that are good and some things that aren't as good as they could be, and so it all balances out. But yeah, it's not the hardest part is as any reviewer will tell you is having to affix star rankings to things, because it doesn't take into account all the nuances of what's going on. So,
well, now watch this segue. Star Wars.
Okay. Star Wars, yes. The Tulsa Symphony, almost exactly 2 years later, is finally going to be able to perform Star Wars in concert. That'll be happening January 29th at the Tulsa PAC. And that is where the film will be played. This is the what I call the first Star Wars film, which has been called, now is known as, I think, A New Hope, Episode 4. And no, it's the first Star Wars film.
The franchise starter.
The franchise starter, yeah. And that will be shown, and the orchestra will be performing the score by John Williams live to accompany the film. And we're going to be, we've asked a number of musicians with the with the Tulsa Symphony to share their memories about hearing this music, which kind of in a way brought back the orchestral movie score in a big way, because the main title opens with that blast of a fanfare, and there's all these strings and English horns and brass and going crazy throughout the whole film. And so we're going to talk to them about that. I remember the first time I heard the opening theme oddly enough, I was driving to work, and I had on one of the local AM rock stations, and there was a pause in the programming, and all of a sudden this sound just emerged from the tinny little speaker in the Ford I was driving. And I just almost had a wreck trying to listen to it, and ended up being late for work because I went to a record shop and bought the record on my way into work. So how about you? Do you remember, what do you remember about the music of Star Wars for yourself, Jimmy?
I remember that. I remember the Cantina Band song actually being a hit on the, Casey Kasem's Top 40. I don't know how far it got up the climb, but you heard it. Well, John Williams is such a stud, though. He's got to be the superhero when it comes to scoring these movies. What's the Mount Rushmore of John Williams songs? Is it Star Wars, Superman? Did he do Jaws?
Yeah, I think so. He did Jaws. I think that was where he started with working with Steven Spielberg. Is that he started with Jaws and the shark theme. That has a relatively simple motif evoked so much as that dum 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 thing. And an interesting thing that I hadn't noticed until recently is that that theme signals whether you should be really scared, because the only time you hear that is when the shark is going to be present. It's never done as a teaser. It's always, no, it's there. It's there. So next time you watch Jaws, look for that. If you hear that, the shark theme, it's going to be there. But as far as the Star Wars main title, I think, is maybe, if the Jaws doesn't take it, it may be his most iconic moment in film scoring, because it blasts open, it blasts you to a new world, literally. Sure. So,
and the Superman theme song basically screams Superman without any vocals,
right?
Dun, dun, dun.
And the Indiana Jones theme, it's running. Da, 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 da. You'd almost see him, the natives chasing him as he's trying to get into the plane. It just fits perfectly with that. So no, he's quite a genius at that. So
I wonder if he had a bad one, like Meatball 7, and he did it. We don't even know what it is.
I haven't come across the clinker yet, but you never know. But, well, speaking of iconic music, one of the defining songs of Merle Haggard was, of course, Okie from Muskogee. And I think you're going to have something about the Hag coming up very soon.
Just this morning, I finished what is being called a definitive biography of Merle Haggard. And it's one of those books where you read it and it makes you understand how much like real work and research goes into just doing the homework for a book. I mean, this book is so filled with detail and so filled with recapturing Merle Haggard's life that I just can't imagine the amount of work that went into this book. It's a great read. It's called The Hag. I recommend it. I'm going to write about it in Sunday's Tulsa World. And I have a great appreciation for Merle Haggard. As I'm sure you do also.
Oh yeah, he's been his. I've grown up with his music from years ago. And I remember his "I'm a Hunted Fugitive" and "Mama Tried" and all of his, like
Very autobiographical, a lot of those songs, because he was a rascal growing up. He was in all kinds of trouble, and obviously he was in San Quentin when Johnny Cash performed.
Right, right. And I think that was kind of an inspiration for him to straighten up and get out there. And I was Okie from Muskogee, I think, came out in 1969. And I remember hearing it and thinking, that sounds like a really weird place in a way, but also sounded like the sort of place that, my family would go, yeah, we need to move there. And so we did about 2 years later. So we didn't move here because of Okie from Muskogee, but when we did make it known to the neighborhood that we were moving to Oklahoma, trust me, I heard that song sung at me a great deal. So, but all right. Well, speaking of singing, Oklahoma native Sarah Coburn, star of opera stages throughout the country, will be returning to her alma mater of OSU on January 29 to perform at the new McKnight Center for Performing Arts. She was supposed to be part of the center's opening season, but the second half of the concerts were canceled because of the COVID virus. And so her concert has been postponed until now. So I believe tickets may be still available. So check that out. And our lovely colleague Grace Wood said that if you are interested in custom farmhouse furniture, she has a story about a craftsman in Claremore named Clay Rudolph. And he has a company called North 40 Rustics, hand making custom furniture. And as she says, for a whole lot cheaper than most big furniture brands. So that's one more thing to check out for this week. Well, I believe that covers all of our topics for this week. We want to thank you all very much for listening, and we will gladly see you later.
Behave.
For more information, you can visit tulsaworld.com.